And everything we'll be doing in the next 2 days comes from HaPeretz's book, Emet Li'Yakov, on how it's a guidebook for a rabbi. It's called Ochot HaRav Kehillat.
So this is part of your study.
Correct.
At the beginning.
I mean, they didn't have this book when I was in yeshiva, but it came out at the end. In fact, I'm on the cover of it.
That's it.
In the classroom.
No.
This
needs a rebinding. Huh?
Yeah, I have a few copies of it because I love this book so much, but this one is my copy. I wore out very well, Baruch Hashem.
You wore it well.
Yes. This is part 3 of a whole chapter on how to study halakha, how to rule Shulchan Aruch. I did a lot of this when we first started our kollel, however many, 4 years ago, and for most of us, that was probably the first time we ever studied Shulchan Aruch inside the text. Not the first time studying halakha, but the first time actually looking inside the Shulchan Aruch and seeing the Hebrew for ourselves and the setup for ourselves, and Maran versus the Rama, other poskim discussing matters of halakha. And so a lot of what I taught then was very theoretical because I don't know that anyone really understood what I was talking about. But now that we've been studying Shulchan Aruch for 4 years, I can imagine that this chapter will have a little more meaning than it had the first time, and you'll be able to use it more than the first time. So this chapter is called Siman Gimmel. Notice there are no English page numbers, so you want to look for the Kuf Gimmel on top. Front page, keep in order. I'm going to read slow enough so that you can translate on these papers. Write on this paper. It's okay. It's yours. Siman Gimmel, the third Siman. Klalei Shulchan Aruch, the rules of the Shulchan Aruch. Farshav and its commentaries. The Harizah and the writings of the Harizah. There are people that might be watching this video on the internet, so I'll give a little hakdama. I don't purport to be from any particular camp aside from the camp of HaPeretz. There are all kinds of Sfaradim in the world. Some of them are crazy over Kabbalah, some of them are crazy against Kabbalah, some of them are for Rambam only, some are for Shulchan Aruch only. I don't stick my head here. Here are the general rules of halakha as we have in the Beit Midrash of HaPeretz. Other people can have their own rules and they can do with that information what they like. But this is how we look at halakha. So, Lamed Bet, because this is a continuation of another chapter, so 32. Stam v'yesh omrim. Stam, what does stam mean?
Simply? Or?
Yeah, simple, plain, like whatever is the simple ruling of the Shulchan Aruch. When Maran writes something clear, the halakha is like this. And then he says, Yesh omrim. There are those who say, some say. So how many opinions is Maran bringing?
More than one.
More than one. There's the first one, which is how he says the halakha. Then there's Yesh omrim, and some say. Kshekotev Maran b'Shulchan Aruch. When Maran writes in the Shulchan Aruch, Svara echad b'stam. One opinion, stam, just plain. He just says that's the halakha. V'svara acheret, in another opinion, b'lashon yesh omrim, in using the language of some say. You see where we are?
Second one.
Da'ato, his opinion is, lifsok halakha, the lifsok kiota svara, to rule according to that opinion, shekatav bistam, which he wrote simply, he wrote plain.
So sometimes he rules that way.
Always.
Always.
Yes. V'chen muskam mikol mechabrin. And this is all of the rabbis who read Maran, they agree to this rule. Meaning, this rule is, whenever Maran writes one halakha, as this is the halakha, and then he says, and some say, and then he says the second opinion, halakha always follows the first opinion. That is Maran's rule. And everyone who reads Shulchan Aruch agrees this way. Let's look at the footnote 13. No, let's wait. Hold on. Let's not do the footnote yet. I don't want to confuse you. Let's look at the second paragraph. Hatam, what's the reason for this? Like, why would Maran write like this and then Yesh Omrim, some say? Yesh Sovrim Hatam, there are some who believe the reason is, Tam is a reason. Shehevi Maran, that Maran quotes Dat Yesh Omrim, the opinion of some say. So some say the reason that Maran quotes the second opinion, En hadavar kim supak etzlo ben hasvarot. It's not because Maran is misupak. What's the root of that word?
Pasek.
The letters are out of order there?
That's what it says.
Doubtful.
Yeah, very good. Safek. The rule is, it's not because Maran has doubt as to which of these opinions is correct. Maran is not quoting two opinions because he doesn't know what he wants. Rather, his opinion is to rule. Notice that the ruling definitively and the word for being doubtful are just the same letters but out of order.
Different order, yeah.
It's very interesting. His opinion is to rule like the first opinion he brings. Psak gamur umukhlat. He's absolutely certain that is the rule. And that which Maran quotes a second opinion, as some say, the reason is rak lachlok kavod, only to give respect, lasovrim ken, to those who hold this way. Sheesh, because sometimes, I'm in parentheses, hem rabim shesovrim ken. Sometimes there's a lot of rabbis that he's arguing with, and therefore he can't pretend like he's the only opinion. So Maran is quoting them out of respect because there are a lot of them. Or because some places have that custom, and Maran is recording it as this is the halakha, and I know that some people have a custom differently, but I'm ruling this way. That reason makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Although, there is a drastically different understanding of this rule, which we're going to read right now. V'yesh lovrim, some say, this is the third paragraph, you see? Shadat Maran, the opinion of Maran, b'ma shehevi yesh omrim, in that which he quotes, some say, שבמקום שהיש אומרים באו להחמיר, that in any case where the second opinion is coming to be strict, לקח הזכירם. That's the reason he quotes them. שבמקום שבקל אפשר להחמיר, that in a place where it's easy to be strict, יש להחמיר כדבריהם. He's telling you, you should be strict like their opinion. This is totally different than what we said before. This opinion is saying the reason why Maran brings the yesh omrim is even though the ruling follows the first opinion, if the second opinion is stricter, and it's not so hard for you to do it, Maran is giving you permission to do it. Do it, it's a good idea. ובמקום שהיש אומרים באו להקל, and in a place where the yesh omrim, that second opinion is coming to be lenient, meaning not stricter than Maran, it's going to be lenient than the Maran, easier, as afal pi shehalacha kastam, that even though the halacha is like the stam, the regular opinion, mikol makom, in any case, b'makom sheyesh od tzad hakel, in a place where there is another reason to be lenient, efshar lehakel, you can be lenient. And Peretz himself crossed out these lines. They were by accident, someone copy and pasted over here in the editing of the book, and there's a newer edition.
He didn't mean that?
No, he did. There's a newer edition of this book, and that was a mistake. I have in this book, I believe in the introduction, Peretz whited out one letter. He said he didn't want to sell me a book and be stealing from me. Oh, he added a letter because he said they want to steal from me that it's missing a letter in the book, and he didn't want Chazron to be stealing from me a letter.
Oh.
So he wrote it in his own handwriting in the book.
An extra letter somewhere. Well,
Yeah. Shenechshav, so I'm skipping all the crossed down lines, I'm continuing there. Shenechshav hayesh omrim, the yesh omrim is considered kisnif lehakel, like a sniff. That's a good word. How are you going to translate that in English? It could
like a
technically mean
branch?
a
Or
branch, right, yeah. That
office,
is.
like they use it like the sniff of
Right,
T-Mobile.
very good, yeah.
There's Claremont sniff and a
So
Lloyd sniff or something.
let me explain how it's used, and then you'll know how to translate it. When you rule a halacha, sometimes there are opinions. You know the halacha says this. You're not allowed. It's not kosher. Yeah, that's an example. It's not kosher. But there is an opinion that says it is kosher. Even though we don't normally rule like that opinion, in a situation where you may have another reason to be lenient, and all you need is an extra push, an extra sniff, an extra something to rely on. It's not a tree, it's a branch. Then you can incorporate this opinion and rely on it. So I'll give you an example. In the olden days, before our parents allowed us to tell people that stainless steel doesn't absorb. So he would tell us, if there's a reason for you to rule halakha leniently, let's say someone used a pot, but they used it in a situation where really it's allowed, but you're not sure really if that's enough, so also incorporate as a sniff this idea that stainless steel is not absorbent, and therefore you could rule that way. So a sniff is like an extra support. It's not a main support, you can't do it on its own, but it's an extra support. The source for that,
It's an evidence, really.
yes, evidence, not necessarily. It's someone that you're relying on in a pressing situation, or in a situation where you needed help.
But you have to have it's like law. It's like if you have a case, you need to bring a support for the case that you're presenting.
But this support is not strong enough on its own.
But it's still enough with everything else to.
With everything, that's right. So I want to use the word a proof is very strong. This is lighter than a
Because a
proof.
proof stands on its own.
Right.
Here's
That's-
the proof.
This is an
A
extra.
sniff
It's a
is
support,
like,
and they might call it.
Here's an additional thing to make my case.
Correct. So essentially, you have the first opinion says Maran knows for sure which halakha he wants to follow. Is the first one. So why is he quoting the second one? To give them respect. What are the two reasons to give them respect? Either because they are
More strict, or because they're more lenient?
no, that's the second opinion. Let's go back to the first opinion. Maran knows which halakha he wants to rule. That's a stam. The Yesh Omrim that he quotes, some say, is because he wants to give them respect.
Respect, right.
Either because there are a lot of rabbis that hold of that opinion, or because there are communities that have that minhag.
But now you're talking about minhag as opposed to.
Minhag meaning that before Maran came around, they ruled like another opinion that he was quoting. Minhag, not like they started doing something that was extra to halakha.
Okay.
And before Maran comes around, this community followed, I don't know, Daridba. And because of that, Maran is saying, hey, I'm going to quote that opinion, but that's not the ruling that I'm following. I'm following the Rambam here.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense? It's
Yes.
minhag, I'm using the classic definition of minhag, not today's definition of minhag. Now, the second understanding of this rule, of stam and yesh omrim, you follow the first opinion, is drastically different. This opinion says, Maran knows the halakha is like stam. But in a case where the yesh omrim, where the extra opinion is strict, he's telling you if it's easy, be strict. And in a case where it's lenient, he's telling you if you're stuck, you can be lenient like this opinion, if you have something else to combine it with.
So Moran, it's not just that he's giving you permission to follow it, like you said before, but it's actually recommending it.
Right? It's like encouraging it almost. Which, this is two completely different understandings of this halakha.
You know.
This may now understand why two people can look at the same chapter in Shulchan Aruch and come out with two very different decisions. How do you, when Maran quotes extra opinions that are stricter, what do you think those extra opinions are? If you're from the first camp, you'll say those extra opinions, Maran says don't hold like that. He's only quoting them because he wants to give them respect. The second camp will tell you, no. Maran is saying that because he wants you to do it if you can. That's going to make for two completely different halachot. It's interesting to note that the second opinion here comes from a book called Or L'Tzion, The Light of Tzion. It was written by Chacham Ben Tzion Abba Shaul. He was the Rosh Yeshiva of Polat Yosef. I once quoted him for you. I told you a story about him and his beard. It was a very short beard. You remember this story?
Yes.
And I want people to listen to me because of what I say, not because of my beard. Rabbi Yonatan Halevy was generally very strict in halakha. And him and Rabbi Yosef were good friends. I will tell you that politically, his legacy is clouded by Rabbi Yosef's sons not liking him so much. I have a letter in my possession where one of Rabbi Yosef's sons write, how could you even teach the halachot of Rabbi Ben Tzion Abba Shaul? We know that oftentimes he would talk to Rabbi Yosef, and Rabbi Yosef would share with him opinions of rabbis that he had never heard before. So he treats him like he was some ignoramus. It's really not kind and it's not correct. Rabbi Yonatan Halevy was a big Talmid Chacham. Yes, the students of Rabbi Yonatan Halevy don't submit themselves to Rabbi Yosef's rulings. They have their own rabbi. It's part of what fuels this. Rabbi Yonatan Halevy perhaps came from a different camp. I'm going to tell you the truth. When you read a letter from Rabbi Yosef and he brings you 300 books, one of the big complaints of Rabbi Yosef is, we don't know who half of those books are. Not to be negative, not like we don't. Some of these chachamim are chachamim that only Rabbi Yosef knows who they are. He had an unbelievable amount of knowledge and breadth. When he wrote this way. Some chachamim, their style of study was not to bring 300 sources. It was to find the logic of the question and give a logical answer with one or two sources that back them up. They don't believe in a numbers game of quoting 1,000 sources. Because of that, the way they studied halakha was not so much names. There's no name game. It doesn't make a difference if you have 300 sources that are wrong.
Yeah.
Rather, to understand the logic correctly, even if you only have two sources backing you up. It's a different understanding, a different approach to halakha. In any case, I would like to say that in our Bet Midrash, the opinion of Peretz is like the first one here. When Maran quotes a second opinion, he's doing it out of respect. Not because he wants us to follow it. But I cannot tell you that there's not a valid approach to study Shulchan Aruch that has the other methodology to it. So already from this first rule, you can tell that there's going to be discrepancy between two camps of how you understand Maran. Now let's look at the footnote, number 13. At the bottom of the page. ואפילו פסק הרמה כבייש אומרים. What do you do if Rama says, oh, the halakha is like the second opinion? What do you do in that situation? לא הלכה כך. The halakha is not like that. אלא כסתם שכתב מרן. The halakha is like the first opinion Maran wrote. So even if Rama says the halakha is like the second opinion, sorry Rama, maybe for you, but for us, we follow the first opinion of Maran. אבל כשמביא מרן המחלוקת בלשון יש אומרים ויש אומרים, but if Maran brings a machloket, that's really the next rule. But I'm doing it now because it's in the footnote now. Maran doesn't say stam. He doesn't say halakha. He says some say and some say. Im harama hichriya kevayesh omrim rishon. If Rama rules according to one of those opinions, in the first one, ken halakha k'mu shepasak Rama. The halakha is accepted the way the Rama ruled. Who gave that rule? It's a book called Tuvuot Shemesh. You know who wrote Tuvuot Shemesh? Shemesh. Shemesh is the acronym of a Rabbi Shalom Masas. That's why his books are called Bet Shemesh, Tuvuot Shemesh, Shemesh Umagen. This is the cousin of Rabbi Yosef Masas, who we quote a lot here. Yeah. So he says the rule is like this: we don't follow the Rama's decision based on which opinion we should follow in Maran, unless there's only two opinions that are quoted as Yesh Omrim, in which case we'll follow the Rama's opinion in that case, even if it goes against the regular rules of halakha. What do I mean? Let's look at Lamed Gimel. You see Lamed Gimel back in the middle of the page? Underneath all the underlined lines.
Yesh Omrim.
Yes.
Yesh Omrim.
Okay. So now, we were talking until now about something called a stam and a yesh omrim. A regular halakha, and some say the halakha is like this. What happens in a case where that's not the way Maran writes it? Maran writes yesh omrim, and he says yesh omrim. So Maran doesn't give a rule. Maran just says some say and some say. Who do we follow in that opinion, in that case? So we'll see right now that כשכותב Maran din, when Maran writes a din, what is a din?
Law.
A law. Bilshon zo, in this wording, yesh omrim, some say this, v'yesh omrim, and some say that. Dato lifsok halakha, kivayesh omrim acharon. His rule is his opinion is to follow
The first.
the second opinion.
It says Acharon. Well,
Yeah.
that follows.
Acharon is the second.
Right.
Yes,
Okay. Sorry.
you're right. Look here in the parentheses. Yad Malachi Klei Shulchan Aruch. He writes that. Kach Katav Knesset Agdola. He writes that as well. Eretz HaChaim Sudden. He writes that as well. I want to show you this part. V'katav Bet Resh Chaf Yud. You know what that is? Birkei Yosef, the knees of Yosef. That book is written by Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai, the Chida. Sheklad Zehu Baru. This is a clear rule. Like, don't think we're playing games here. Also, this rule of Yesh Omrim and Yesh Omrim, the halakha is like the second opinion. That's a clear rule that we have in halakha. So let's summarize. Until now, if Maran says halakha is like this, but some say, what do?
You follow the Acharon.
No. If
Well,
Maran
first.
says halakha is stam,
Stop. Then you.
and then
first
Yesh
opinion.
Omrim, you follow the first opinion.
Yes.
If Maran writes Yesh Omrim and Yesh Omrim, you follow
Second.
second.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Omlam, but im harama hichriya ki yesh omrim rishon. If Maran says, Rama says the halakha is like the first yesh omrim, Naktinan the halacha. We take the halacha ke'achrato, the way he rules.
The way Ramah rules.
The we'll follow the Ramah in the understanding of Shulchan Aruch. And again, who does he quote? Tuvot Shemesh. That's Rabbi Masas. V'od, and furthermore, after the parentheses, v'od. Af al pi shahalacha ki yesh omrim acharon. Even though halacha follows in a yesh situation, the second opinion.
On the next page here?
On the next page, on Kuf Dal.
Kuf Dal.
See it? Even though halacha in a yesh omrim situation follows the second opinion, yeah, we agree on that. Mikol makom, in any case, yechol lomar, a person can say, Ki malik yesh omrim harishon, I'm following the first yesh omrim. Let's not get into this. V'chen hadin, so too is the halacha k'shekutev Maran when he writes, yesh omrim, some say, v'yesh cholkim, and some argue. I mean, it's not yesh omrim and yesh omrim. It's some say, and some argue.
Disputing.
Halacha k'v'yesh cholkim ha'acharon. Halacha is like the second opinion that argue. Meaning, what he's trying to tell you is, it doesn't make a difference how he writes it. Once he brings two opinions, you always follow the second opinion. No matter which wording he uses. V'chen k'shekotev, and also when Maran writes yesh omrim, some say, v'yesh mi shomer, and there is someone who says. Or v'yesh mi shecholek, there's someone who argues. Halacha k'v'yesh mi shomer, or k'v'yesh mi shecholek ha'acharon. We follow the second opinion. Whenever Maran brings opinions, it doesn't make a difference if he writes them in plural, he writes them in singular, he writes them, one is arguing, one is saying. When there are two opinions, Maran is ruling like the second opinion.
What is that also true if there's a third, fourth, fifth opinion?
Oh, that's a good question. Is it discussed here? Because there is a rule about that.
I think we just, in terms of washing the hands, there were some
We
situations
spoke
like
about
that.
this. Is it for them? If I'm not mistaken, when he writes even 3 yesh omrims, the halacha is like the last one. We had a case like that in the first volume of Kolam, the first red book. Okay, so far we have everything? Lamadana, this one is an interesting halacha. Yesh mi shomer. When Maran writes, there is someone who says. Not there are those, rather, there is someone who says. When Maran writes a halacha, there is someone who says. Bli shum cholek, but there's nobody who argues. He just starts the halacha as, and there is someone who says. And he doesn't quote anybody who argues. Ken hidatol halacha. That is Maran's opinion. If Maran starts a chapter saying, there is someone who says X,
That's his opinion.
he follows that opinion. So why doesn't he just write it stam? Why does he have to write there's someone who says? Why did he just say that's the halakha?
To not get into conflict, maybe.
You just
But
need
there's
one,
no-
you
there's
just
no
need
one
one
arguing.
right
Yeah.
person to be right.
There's no one arguing. So why does he just write it like this?
Perhaps they have, I mean,
V'atam shenakat l'shon zeh. The reason he uses this language of yesh mi shomer, there's someone who says b'lshon yachid, using a singular instead of plural.
Or some instead of some who say.
Kivan shelo niskar hadin hazeh b'shar poskim. Because this halakha was only mentioned by one rabbi, not by the rest. Meaning, let's say, the Rambam writes it, but the Rosh and the Riv don't. Or one Chacham wrote about it, but the other codes didn't write about it, but Maran still believes this should be a halakha. In that situation, Maran can't write there are some who say, because there are no some, it's just one person. And even though he feels that way in the halakha, he writes it in such a way that you should know that it's a single opinion, even though he feels strongly about it. L'chen metzayno b'shon yesh mi shomer. That's why he says there is someone who says.
This raises an interesting question, which is, there isn't like a standard number of halachot. Let's say, for example, you have a section, say, on Gittin, and let's say there were 30 halachot in the Rambam. Could it be that Maran would have 40 halachot, and the Rambam never even dealt
Knew
with
of
10 of them?
Yeah, it could happen.
And how do we deal with that?
That whoever came later, not necessarily Maran, whoever came later is trying to incorporate more opinions into the halachic formula. I actually just did it yesterday with my class. I went one halakha, one detail of halakha. I started in the Chumash, I went to the Mishnah, I went to the Talmud, I went to the Rambam, I went to Shulchan Aruch, and I showed you how the same halakha, how it changed or didn't change over time. It would be interesting to do that one day.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting. Like it evolving.
Okay, so far these are the rules of Maran. But someone have the Kola book here, the red book?
The hay?
Yeah.
I have it in my car.
Okay, let's do this. Take out your phone for a second. You have Safaria? Okay, if you go to Halakha, click Shulchan Aruch. Yeah, you see it? So go Safaria to the home page. Click
Shulchan
Halakha.
Aruch?
No, just the regular Shulchan Aruch, top.
Oh, okay.
Shulchan Aruch. And which volume of Shulchan Aruch? Orach Chaim. And go to chapter 148. No, sorry, 158.
It doesn't go back.
You click on top with this little arrow.
We're looking at Aruch Hayim, you see?
Yeah, Orach Chaim 158.
Got
We
it.
did this in Kola. But now you'll have a different look at it, this halakha. Yeah, you guys are in chapter 158?
Yes.
Moshe?
Chapter 158.
Yeah.
If anybody needs help, let me know.
Yeah.
Pull it up.
Scott, can you help?
No, I got it.
Got it? 158?
yeah.
There?
I'm still
Get
browsing.
it there. So halakha, Shulchan Aruch, Orach Chaim, 158. Go down to halakha 11. There's a little numbers on the side of the page. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Got it?
Yep.
Let me read. You know this halakha because we've spoken about it so many times here at Kehillat Shaar. Mevarech, this halakha of washing your hands. You make a blessing. Kodem netila, before you wash your hands. Shekol ha-mitzvot, because all of the mitzvot, mevarech alehem over la'asiyatan. You say the blessing before you do the mitzvah. Is that halakha an opinion?
No.
Is that a yesh omrim? Does it say yesh omrim?
No.
How does it start?
Just
Stop.
way.
Stop.
Yeah.
This is how you do it. You make a bracha before you wash your hands.
Oh, simple.
Then what's the next word in Maran?
Kodem?
Ve
Oh, keep-
nahagu. And they have a custom.
oh, okay. They have a custom.
Shelo levarech ad achad netilah. That you should not make a blessing until after you wash your hands. So people want to tell me, what do you mean you make a bracha before you wash your hands? Even the Shulchan Aruch says you make a bracha after you wash your hands. Don't be a fool when you read Shulchan Aruch. We have rules in Shulchan Aruch. If Maran were to tell me, some say you make a bracha before you wash your hand, and some say you make a bracha after you wash your hand, what would the halakha be?
The
second
second.
one.
The second. But what does Maran here do? He says,
It's a stump.
you make a bracha before you wash your hand.
Mhm.
He doesn't even say as some say. He just says, and they have a custom. Meaning I'm upgrading this custom to a some say. And some say to make a bracha afterwards. Anyone who knows how to read Shulchan Aruch knows that this, which is Maran's opinion? The first. So why do I have to have a conversation at all with anybody? The Chavetz Chaim here, the Mishnah Berurah, in his commentary Biur Halacha says, it's clear that the opinion of Maran is you make a blessing before you wash your hands.
Now, if you opened up the Shulchan Aruch Harav of Rav Shur Zalman, what would he say? Do you know?
I have no idea.
It would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm assuming.
Not that I'm.
No, I'm assuming that he would say to make a blessing afterwards. That's what I'm assuming.
But interesting to see how he would say it, or.
Right? Yeah. You're welcome to look it up. It's on Safari. Okay, so now that we got the rules of Maran down.
Or Rav Moshe Feinstein.
Right. Anyone. Lamed He. Haghot sheba Shulchan Aruch. The notes inside of the Shulchan Aruch. What does it mean, notes?
Commentaries.
We're not talking about like the Ramah, where the Ramah inserts a blurb. You know that we know when the Ramah. How do we know the Ramah speaks?
It's Rashi script.
It starts with Hagah, note. The Ramah always makes a note first. Sometimes in Maran there are random words that get added in parentheses. You'll see that they're written in the same font as the Ramah, but who wrote those words? Hahaghot shebetoch divrei Maran b'Shulchan Aruch. Those little notes in parentheses inside of the words of Maran, the Shulchan Aruch, chaser or yater teva achat u'shtayim, which are either taking away a word or adding a word, one or two words. Yesh omrim, some say shehem Maran Rabbi Yosef Karo. Some say Maran wrote those words. They're explanations. This second thing is a very important thing to know. This next sentence we're going to read. At the end of almost every piece of the Ramah, there's a parenthesis that tells you where the Ramah is quoting his information from. His sources. There's a problem though. Sometimes those sources are misquoted. At the end of the paragraph, say, oh, Ramah got his idea here. You go look it up, it's not there. What's wrong with the Ramah? You can't even keep track of what he writes. No, chas v'shalom. Hatzionim shebedivrei haRamah, the sources that are at the ends of the words of the Ramah. Lo mimenu hem, he didn't write them. Ela na'asu achar kach, they were made after he wrote his book. V'nivreru mitoch sifro darkei Moshe. And they were collected from his original work, Darkei Moshe, meaning they looked at the long version of the Ramah's notes and they saw which sources he quoted, and they put those sources at the end of what he writes in Shulchan Aruch. But he didn't write it. So whoever did that sometimes made a mistake. Don't be surprised. Don't blame the Ramah for a mistake he didn't make. He just finished now with the book of our parents, Chumash. And I made a note there in the beginning saying, any mistake you find in this book, my rabbi didn't make it, I made it. Anything that I explained a certain way or I typed a certain way, don't think that he made the mistake. He had nothing to do with typing this book up. I typed it up. It's important to know, because in his handwriting there are no mistakes. But when I do it, there'll be mistakes. The Ramah also, don't blame the Ramah for mistakes you find over there. He didn't do them. Lamed Vav. This is an interesting one. Yesh lizaher. One should be careful. When Maran writes a halakha and he says, Yesh lizaher, you should be careful about this halakha. Give an example of that one. Let me find an example. Shulchan Aruch. Right here. We have Safari. It's going to be halakha. If you go to the same place, Orach Chaim, but choose chapter 166. No, it's hard for me with Sefer. I'm always looking because I don't.
So,
And I
Shulchan
learned
Aruch
from my
Siman
set
166.
Yeah.
Din Sukkah Bein B'tzia L'Natila.
Yes.
Washing.
Making an interruption between washing your hands and eating the bread.
What chapter was it?
166.
Oh.
Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 166.
What is it?
Yesh Omrim. Some say שאין צריך להיזהר מלפסוק בנטילה להמוציא. That you don't have to be worried about talking in between or doing anything between washing your hands and eating bread. ויש אומרים, and some say, שצריך להיזהר. That you have to be careful. Some say and some say. What does halakha follow?
Second one.
Uh-oh, so what are we doing? What's going on over here in Kehillat HaShamayim?
Mm-hmm.
And make it worse, Maran writes, V'tov lizaher, and it's good to be careful. So he's reinforcing the second opinion, no?
Walking 22, but it's considered to be.
The Ramah says that if you want to be careful not to make an interruption, if it takes you longer than the amount of time that it takes to walk 22 amot. I'll do the math right now, I have a calculator in front of me. That's 33 feet. How long does it take you to walk 33 feet?
10 seconds.
5 minutes.
No.
5 minutes?
5 minutes.
What are you, crawling? 30 seconds? 10 seconds?
10 seconds, like, yeah, 1 second.
What is 33
stride.
feet? Show me 33 feet.
It's like, like right there to right.
One side of the room to the other?
Yeah.
Can we say? Okay.
Yeah.
So how long does it take you to walk from that wall to that wall? 10 seconds?
10 seconds.
Says the Ramah, if you wash your hands and you sit at the table quietly, and from washing your hands until you make hamutzi, it takes you longer than to walk from that wall to that wall, 10 seconds, you might as well talk.
Timed out.
I mean, it's over. You were interrupted. So this is where I tell people, even they who don't talk, they're making an interruption. Notice the halakha says nothing about talking. Pausing for more than 10 seconds is considered an interruption.
So that's probably in the days when they used to wash the hands at the table.
Yeah, very good. You had a servant came, wash your hands, you made hamutzi right away. You were in the kitchen, you wash your hands, you make a hamutzi on your sandwich. But at the Shabbat table, lo shayach. It's not possible that someone's going to do this.
Especially when you have 100 guests. And,
Of course.
What happened?
and
You understand
just
that
sit
how-
there,
People are so far removed from this halakha, they have no idea. Shulchan Aruch, did anyone talk, the Ramah talked about talking? Ask a person this question. A rabbi, go ask a rabbi this question. Rabbi, after I wash my hands for bread, am I allowed to talk after I wash? He'll say, no. Ask him, am I allowed to read the newspaper? No. So Rabbi, what should I do? Sit quietly in your chair. Rabbi, how long am I allowed to sit quietly in my chair for? As long as you want, as long as you don't talk. That's what he'll tell you. Try it. Call somebody. But he's wrong. Halakha didn't say anything about talking. Halakha said sitting in your chair for 10 seconds is a problem. It shouldn't surprise you then when you find out that the minhag in Ashkenaz, the Ramah writes this. If you look in the laws of Kiddush, I don't remember if I saw this in chapter 271 or 272. I don't remember, in Orach Chaim. Ramah over there writes, in my whole life I never saw people do Kiddush like Rabbi Yosef Karo says. Rabbi Yosef Karo says people do Kiddush, then they wash their hands, then they do Hamotzi. He said he never saw that in his life. Miyamai lo haiti shenahagu ken. I never saw this. So rather everybody washes their hands, does Kiddush, drinks the wine, and right away makes Hamotzi. That was the minhag in Ashkenaz. When it changed, I don't know. I know German Jews that still do this. People say, oh, it's a German custom. It's not a German custom. That's what all the Ashkenazim did. Ramah says he never saw somebody do Kiddush and then wash their hands. He never heard of it in his life. I said, I asked my German friend, how does it work? With interruptions and all. He said, listen, all of us, we wash our hands, we come to the table. The host makes Kiddush. He goes to the sink, washes his hand, come back to the table, and right away he makes a Hamotzi. Meaning, the one who's making the Hamotzi, he doesn't even wait 10 seconds. But everybody else, if they're already waiting for 10 seconds, they can also drink wine in between. They understood in Germany the halakha properly. But then ask anybody this question. What's better, sitting at the table for 5 minutes or talking for 3 seconds? What's better? People don't know halakha. Even rabbis don't know halakha. So that made a problem though. I showed you Maran, his second opinion is you shouldn't make an interruption. And he even says, V'yesh li zaher, and you should be careful. So then how can we make an interruption? But from here, I'll tell you. Maran says, Yesh li zaher. I tell people all the time, it's not a mitzvah to talk. Sometimes I get upset. I come here, and people are talking, but they're talking about nonsense. That you shouldn't talk even when you're not washing your hands. Really, you're allowed to sit and be quiet. Just to think a little bit in your life. 1 second, be quiet. Some people, their whole life, they don't shut up. At least now they can be quiet. Give them a few seconds. Let's understand, what does Maran mean when he says Yesh li zaher? We should be careful. Back in our book. Yesh li zaher, we should be careful. Kol makom shekodev Maran b'Shulchan Aruch. Every place where Maran writes on Shulchan Aruch, Lashon zeh, this language, Yesh li zaher, Kavanato, his intention, li zaher lechatchila. Ideally, you should be careful. Avad b'di avad, but after the fact, mutar, it's okay. Should I give you an example for this?
Yeah.
It's an advanced example though. You're going to have to hold your head a little bit. So remember the rules of halakha? Of dishes? If you cook meat in a pot, how long does that pot stay meat for?
24
hours. After 24 hours, it goes back to being parve. But you still have to make it kosher if you want to use it for dairy. Why?
Safek?
The rabbis made a decree. What's the decree?
Not to switch back and forth.
Maybe you're not going to wait 24 hours. Maybe you're going to wait 23 hours, in which case you're really cooking dairy with meat. So even if you wait 5 days, you still have to make the pot kosher before you're going to use it for dairy. The question is, what happens if this happens by accident? After 24 hours.
Then
So
it's okay.
let's look.
You just use it for dairy after 20
Right, you
26 hours.
didn't mean to,
You
but it
hasn't
happened
gone-
that way.
Hasn't gone to the mikvah. Hasn't gone to the mikvah. Also, is heat?
No, not mikvah. Kashering with heat.
Okay, heat covering.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dugma leze, an example for this. Ma shekatav b'Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim. What Maran writes in the Shulchan Aruch, what's Orach Chaim? In chapter 4:52. Do you know what halachot those are?
No.
You do. Why would Maran be talking about kashrut in the volume that talks about weekdays and Shabbat and holidays? Which holiday is he talking about? Which holiday has kashrut involved?
That's Pesach.
Pesach, yeah. I mean, even though Maran talks about kashrut and Yoreh De'ah, but by the laws of Pesach he talks about kashrut also. So in order to fully understand what Maran says in the laws of kashrut, you have to be familiar not just what he writes in the laws of kashrut, but also what he writes in the laws of Pesach. Sometimes because he already said something in the laws of Pesach, he doesn't repeat it in the laws of kashrut. You might think it's not a halakha, but it is a halakha. He just assumes that you read the book in order. So what Maran writes in the laws of Pesach, Yesh li zaher, you should be careful not to lehagil klei basar v'klei chalav biachad, to boil meat and milk dishes together. Be careful not to do that. Elem ken echad mehem eno ben yomo, unless one of them hasn't been used in 24 hours.
Wow.
Unless one of them has.
Maran says don't boil meat and dairy pots together. Unless one of them wasn't used in 24 hours, then it's okay.
I'm talking about stainless steel.
No, we're talking about regular, like, imagine something porous. You're trying to make it kosher for Pesach, so what do? You boil your pots and pans together. But if you're boiling meat and dairy together, what are you going to cause? Forget about chametz, what are you going to cause?
Mixture of
Mixture of meat and milk, that's a problem. So Maran says, if you're going to boil your meat and dairy dishes together, make sure that one of them wasn't used in 24 hours. That way it's not really dairy, or it's not really meat. It's only dairy or meat according to the rabbis, not according to the Torah. Yes?
Okay.
And what's the language that he uses? Yesh li zaher, you should be careful. He doesn't say it's forbidden. He just says you shouldn't do it. Omnam, but Yoreh De'ah, in the laws of kosher, katav, he writes, Ka'arot shel basar, meat bowls, shehudachu biyoreh cholevet, that were washed in a dairy pot. How do you wash your dishes in older days? You don't have a sink.
Giant pot.
You take your giant pot that you know it's your chicken soup pot. You heat up water in there and you wash all your dishes in there. So you're washing your meat dishes in your dairy pot. How hot is the water? B'chamin, with hot water, sheyad soledet b'hand, it is hot enough to burn your hand. So that's very hot. It's not like it's not hot. It's like the first case, boiling the meat and milk dishes together. Maran writes, Afilu shnehem bnei yoman. Even if both of them were used in the last 24 hours, mutar, it's allowed, you can do that. What? Maran told us before, you shouldn't do this unless one of them is older than 24 hours. Here he's saying, it's okay, boil your meat and milk dishes together, as long as one of them, no, even if both are used in the last 24 hours. What's the reason he gives? Mishum dehavele nat barnat dehetera. Because it is not barnat dehetera. You know what that phrase means? Nat. You know what nat means? N-A-T or nun apostrophe tet. Noten tam, it gives flavor. Bar noten tam, the son of the one who gives flavor. Let's explain. I have here my pot. This is a dairy pot. Boiling hot water. My meat utensil, I'm going to boil it in there. In this pot there's dairy.
Yeah.
It was used in the last 24 hours.
Yes.
In this is meat. It was used in the last 24 hours. The dairy gives flavor once. Into what? Into the water. The water passes off the flavor a second time. Into what? Into the spoon. Says Maran, when you're talking about a pig pot with a kosher spoon, that's going to be a problem. Because the flavor of the pig goes from the pot to the water and the water to the spoon. But when you're talking about kosher meat or kosher dairy, not, bar not, 2 times removed flavor is not a problem. It's only a problem if there's actually not kosher here. The laws of kosher meat and kosher dairy are lighter. They're easier than the laws of pig with kosher. Imagine telling that halakha to somebody today. They'll lose their mind. The real question though is, why is the Maran inconsistent? Why here he says it's okay, even if both of them were used in the last 24 hours? And over there he says you should be careful not to have both of them used last 24 hours. Answer the question now that you know. In the laws where he said you should be careful, what was he telling you? It's preferable to be careful. If you can, be careful. Then you don't get in the situation at all. But if you do it, nothing's wrong with it. Someone can't say that. You can do it, but it's better not to. That's what Maran is doing. Maran says, Yesh Yizahir. So in the laws of washing your hands for bread, Maran says, Yesh Omrim and Yesh Omrim. Some say and some say. Who should halakha follow? The second opinion. But when Maran adds the words, Yesh Yizahir, and you should be careful, what is he telling you really his opinion is?
More lenient.
Right? That the second opinion is not halakha. Even though he's telling you to do it. Comprende? Makes sense, right? Very good. See, when you study Shulchan Aruch, you can't just read the book. You have to understand the book. Understand that Maran wrote this book. There's a reason why he uses certain words. He's not like you and me. We write sometimes this, we write sometimes that. He is deliberate in his language. Okay, let's do one more. Loke. What does loke mean? What are malkot? Malkot? Moshe,
Malkot.
what does this mean?
Oh. Oreja.
That's the Jewish version.
Ah.
Malkot means we take him to Beit Din and beat him.
Margaret.
Malkot are lashes. Malkot are same idea. כשכותב מרן, ומרן writes, וכן שאר הפוסקים, or any other פוסק, על איזה דין, he says some halakha, העושה כן לוקה, or אינו לוקה. The person who does this, we would have beaten him in Beit Din. Who cares? I don't have a Beit Din that beats people anymore. So for what reason is Maran telling me this halakha? What difference does it make to my life? You want to know the answer to that question? Yesh nafka mina gam bizmanenu. It makes a difference even nowadays. How so? Hu she'im hu chayav malkot. If a person does an avera, that he's obligated to get beat and bedin for it. Look on the top of Kufay. Pasul le'edut min haTorah. He is forbidden to be a witness, even according to the Torah.
We'd have to disqualify a lot of people today.
You see, when I have to do a chuppah, I have to make sure I find 2 witnesses that are kosher witnesses. The averot that people do, not all averot are created equally. Some averot have malkot. What happens? Look at this. When it comes to marrying a woman, if you use a witness that according to the Torah is not a kosher witness, the whole marriage is not a marriage.
A lot of that's happening.
Yeah, a lot of that is happening. If I can go and say, hey, you, who did a wedding for you? That person was a witness for you? You're not even married. You could leave your husband, you don't even need a get. You go marry somebody else. That wedding is not a wedding.
There's a lot of people.
Tell us that a lot of people, they get married at a certain point. The Jewish wedding, then later on in life, they become a lot more connected to halakha. They learn halakha properly, and sometimes they realize, wait a second, the wedding that we did, that witness, we took our brother to be the witness. That's not a kosher wedding. And sometimes 40 years of them getting married, you have to do a new wedding.
Or a girl, they got a girl, they make a big deal.
All kinds of things
about
could have
it,
happened in that situation. I always tell people, oh, Rabbi, this one married me. I don't care who married you. Tell me who are the witnesses at the chuppah. And that's what makes the wedding. You have the chief rabbi do a wedding for you. But if the witnesses are not kosher, they're not kosher.
So that means that wedding didn't count.
At all. That means that if Chaz v'Shalom she goes and has a child with another man, that child is kosher.
Wow.
You understand how that works?
Serious.
It's happened to me more than once. Not that I did this. That I found situations where, Baruch Hashem, the wedding wasn't kosher. Because what would have happened after that? Hashem
A big get battle.
Okay, tomorrow we're going to pick up on Lamed Chet, 38. I think if we want to do this properly, it might take us more than 2 days, but we're going to try.